All right. Hello and welcome to On Surviving. My name is Megan and I'm a survivor.
And my name is Nobly, and I am a survivor.
Together, we're bringing On Surviving to the world because it matters.
It matters to me because alongside the potent fears of our frail hearts is so much hurt, loss, and trust issues that often I had to navigate through all alone with very little resources and zero trust. I am passionate about this project because I get to be that trusting person to show up and help navigate through the resources that I never had and hopefully make a difference in people's process of surviving.
And it matters to me because I want others to recognize the deep strength and rich humanity involved in every step in the process of surviving the tragedies life brings many of us. I suffered silently and alone for too long, and I want to help others to find hope more quickly and readily and feel and be less alone in the process of surviving.
On surviving matters, you matter, and we matter.
Oh, awesome. Well, I am so glad to be here today. This is the last time we are coming together this season and this short season, actually, which, we've done on purpose to just try to get a feel for exactly how we want to do this thing, right? And we're very excited to be wrapping it up to talk about hope, finding hope, especially in those times when it feels really far-fetched. Yeah, we're gonna try a couple of new things while we're talking about this. So I don't know, it just seems quite fitting, right? We hope it works out well.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you just a little bit about the changes to expect. Not huge, but the biggest change is really about getting to talking with our guests more quickly, right? So, of course, we wrote on the theme, as we always do. And we're going to go ahead and bring in highlights from that writing throughout the conversation. But instead of talking about it more upfront initially, we're going to just weave that into the conversation with our guest today. We're also going to do a little bit of a shorter check-in process, but I mean, that's really the biggest thing. So we just want to get into the heart of that conversation. So of course, one thing that does not change is that we speak frankly and openly about our experiences, how we feel about them. And that can be triggering for folks. Can bring up tough memories, tough feelings. And we just want to make sure that y'all know that you actually that you're completely in charge of this, right? This is for you. And if you need to shut it off and go take care of yourself, we encourage you to do that. Also, if just in follow-up, you feel like you need to talk to somebody and, talk to someone you care about that cares about you, or if you're just feeling like that's not going to be possible, or you'd rather talk to a stranger, which I know personally can be super helpful. We also encourage you to do that. So let me just show you real fast as a reminder, and maybe new for if there's anybody new with us here today. Please do remember, always available is this crisis line. And so in the US, you can dial 988 and talk to anyone, anytime, for free, wherever you are. In Mexico, in my recent past home, that number is 800-911-2000. There's a ton. There are calls for almost every country out there. So you can find those on a simple listing on Wikipedia. And there's a couple other places. If you just do a Google search, you should be able to find one for you. Just what's important is you're struggling. We want you to remember you're not alone. You matter. Please do reach out for help.
Yeah. So, without further ado, no, I would like to introduce and welcome our guest, Aisha Taylor, to come and join us now.
Hi guys.
Hi.
Thank you for having me.
Yes.
Welcome, welcome.
Yes, welcome. As Megan mentioned a little bit earlier, we're going to do a little shorter version of our check-in, but we're still going to, remember the 7 dimensions of wellness.
Mhm.
So, how is everybody feeling tonight? How's everybody showing up? I know.
Go ahead,
Sorry.
Nobly. No, go ahead, Nobly.
I know for me personally, relating to the 7 dimensions of wellness, my occupational is really, really high because I am a new employee to a job, more like a career that I'm really proud of. And out of nowhere, we have staffing meetings every 2 weeks. And 2 weeks ago, out of nowhere, the bosses said, hey, we're going to just put all your names in a hat and you guys are going to start running the staffing meetings from this point on. And you have to have an icebreaker game. You have to have a topic. You have to do all the stuff. Well, okay, I'm the newest employee. I get drawn first, of course. And anyway, I did a fantastic job. And this was on Monday, and everybody still is coming up to me and saying, man, you did such a good job. And I told him, I said, well, I looked at it this way. I'm either going to be amazing and you guys are going to, have all this respect, or I'm going to suck really bad and be there for you guys and show you exactly what not to do. So I'm still being a team. I'm still being a team player, right? So anyway, I'm really proud of myself for that because it was really, really good. But on the other side of that, I'm running real bad in the physical because I have a torn meniscus ever since I went to Mexico, and it's really been hurting the last 3 or 4 days. So with the physical pain, it kind of triggers some of the others, some of the other overall, wellness. But I say I'm running pretty good tonight. So thank you.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. I love how you made it so like no matter what happened, like that was going to be a success. That was what a beautiful way to set yourself up well.
Yes, it helped me get through it because I'm like, well,
I'm curious about what your icebreaker was. What was your icebreaker that you brought to the team?
It was 2 truths and a lie. And so I said, I have 3 brothers and a sister, or 3 sisters and a brother. I was a cook in a German restaurant and I was born in the state of Arizona. Mm-hmm. And the Arizona one was the lie. But I got to know a lot about the coworkers.
I love it.
So yeah. It was fun. There was another one, just really quick. It was called Bucket List. Uh-huh. And you're just supposed to talk about what your big bucket list would be. And the reason is A, because you get to know people, and B, because you can encourage your teamwork or your coworkers to, hey, how far have you come on doing your bucket list? So that one was kind of cool too.
Yeah, I love that one.
It's giving me some good ideas.
Come right here for all the good tips, Aisha.
Right. I
see. So how are you showing up today, Aisha?
I think so. Number one, I'm excited. I'm excited to be here. Thank you guys again for having me. It was a pretty busy day. Like it was more hectic than normal, I think, just because I am coming off of vacation and I'm back starting a work. I have my catering business, right? So I've got all of this stuff happening and, getting the boys, to and from school and cooking, and it's a lot. I'm a little, amped up just because I've been going, but I'm happy. I'm excited to be here.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, well, super, super glad you're here. And excited for others to learn more about you in a minute. And I'll do a quick check-in too. I'm in, I don't know. I wasn't sure exactly how I was going to show up tonight. Frankly, it's been a really rough couple of weeks. And I'm in this intense amount of change. I look at the 7 dimensions of wellness and I'm like, everything I think except really the spiritual, maybe in a connection with the emotional, just feels like it's in intense change. And for anyone that is really stressful, and it happens to come at a time where I've surfaced and I'm dealing with a lot of grief stuff, which is all on our plate. So anytime you surface those things, everything intensifies around. So it just feels like a lot, and yet at the same time, I feel the strongest I have maybe ever inside internally. So
That's
it's
wonderful.
like carrying this huge boulders on my shoulder and yet feeling like pretty mighty in doing that. So I think right.
You got this.
I actually have a tattoo that says that.
Really? I love it. I love that. Yeah, you got it.
Yeah. So there you go. That's how I'm showing up today. It also, I will warn everyone though, I almost didn't put eye makeup on because of this, but that kind of all those big emotions means oftentimes I'm more prone to crying. So even like for beautiful things. So here we go. Let's have a good time with all of that here tonight.
Well, thank you everybody for checking in. And Aisha, would you like to tell us a little bit about your story and a little bit about yourself and why this topic means so much to you?
Sure. I think let's see, I've got a lot of story. I'll give you a condensed version. I basically grew up here in Seattle and I have 3 boys, and I had them kind of at a young age. I started off really, really early. Part of the reason is because I was molested as a young child. And as you know, you can either go, a couple ways. I went the crazy way. And so I had my kids really, really young, but I think that also helped me to build such a close bond with them, just because I was a child raising kids, right? And so we kind of grew up together. My oldest, when he was 21, he was murdered. He was murdered by then a boyfriend at the time. And so I'm here to talk about that, and hopefully my story will help somebody out there. And I love this topic because, we all, I feel like, have a little bit of hope inside of us somewhere, right? Mm-hmm. And so something good came out of that. Although I struggled really, really hard, something really good came out of that, because my kids and we always talked about opening a restaurant one day. And so after my son passed away, I strayed from that, right? I didn't see cooking. I didn't even want to cook. But I recently, last year, started a catering business. My catering company is called Chef Taylor's Catering. And so I launched that catering business, and I have such a big plan ahead. And I have a great way to incorporate my son who has passed on, which I plan to reach out to a nonprofit agency and partner with them in some kind of way, a nonprofit agency who actually works with families that have lost children, that helps them with burial services, that helps them cope and helps with grieving. I want to hold a banquet, an annual thing in my son's name. And I want a chance for all of us to recognize our babies, right? And so that's kind of how I am getting out of my darkness and getting to the hope and the light at the time. So hopefully I'll be able to give you more about me, but that's kind of a little bit in a nutshell. So
oh, Aisha, thank you so much. I want to say one thing. I'm super glad you found your way back to cooking, because I can attest your food is delicious. Yes.
thank you.
Yeah. And I can also attest that you and all of your boys are amazing. Really, really beautiful people. So happy to have you here. Not happy that you've had to go through what you've had to go through, or any of us. It's interesting. I thought I didn't know, Aisha, about you, that you also share another commonality with Noble Lee and me, and that childhood sexual abuse that all of us did. And I also became an early mom as a result. It very much related to that early sexual abuse. So so we're all bringing some really tough stories, with some real commonalities, some real differences. Gosh, Noble Lee, with starting out so early with the murder of your brother. And I mean, just, to some, I look at this screen, your faces, our faces, really, because I can see my own too. On the screen, and just think how miraculous it feels and seems to be standing here, and how amazing and so grateful that I am, that the world has all of us. So
Definitely.
Yeah. So and of course, we Noble and I have been talking about these, the struggles in our own lives for a while. We've also been talking about that, how much it is that we matter, how much, amazing things we do bring to the world, and how important it is that we've gotten here. And always constantly talking about how we just want folks to be able to hold on. So folks that are listening or watching, we were chit chatting before we came on live, and I was about to share how I participate in a private group, with online with other parents who have lost their children. And I have been really noticing and hearing myself, hearing you, Aisha, because I was there, not there, but we were in each other's lives when your son was murdered. And I so I was hearing that desperation, that hopelessness, so much in folks' comments in that group. And I'm thinking, oh, I know it. I know it. And I know it doesn't help really to tell you that it's going to be different. And yet, I'm still hopeful that this conversation will show a little bit about that possibility, because it is, however slim, that little bit of hope is part of what seems to keep us going. Any of us, human beings, right? Yeah. So during this episode, we want to explore how we've each found hope in the worst of times, what that hope looks like in our lives. And also for me, I think it's important, because I said a big part of it is hope, or an important part of it is, but for me, there are times where I've had to put something in place of hope just to hold on, just to keep going, or a different kind of hope, maybe, actually, as I think about it. But so I really do think we get there to this true sense of hope in this life. And there's stuff in between on the way. So let's go ahead and jump right in with a really kind of straightforward question. What is hope? What do you each think about when you think about hope? Nobly, you want to start us?
Yeah, like I described in my article, that hope is to me is finding light in such a world of darkness. You know, when you get to that point where you just don't ever feel like anything's going to change. You know, you feel hopeless, and you've had that feeling so long that anything else outside of that feels impossible, not reachable. I do believe in God. I was very angry at God for a lot of years. Why did my brother die? Why did my son die? Why was I hurt, beaten, raped? You know, why did all of that happen? And so subliminally, I knew, you know, that God was there, but I was too angry to, you know, but I do know now that when I was under the bridge and I was suicidal and addicted and homeless, and I had lost my son, and I had a suicide attempt that didn't work, and I just really truly didn't want to breathe. I didn't, but I felt something stirring. It was hope, but it was foreign to me. Like, I didn't know where it came from, what to do, but I knew it was something, and I knew that I needed to listen to it, that, you know, something was going to come from it. And it did. It led me out from under the bridge into a place where, for the first time in a really long time, I was met with people that were giving me some hope, that were telling me that you absolutely are worth it, that you absolutely matter in this world, and that you're needed. It doesn't matter if you're hungry and wet and stinky and addicted and, you know, all of those things. And that time that I needed to hear that, the way it was said and delivered to me, it stuck. It stuck, and something changed in me that day.
Yeah.
And for the first time, I felt actual hope that maybe I wasn't a lost cause.
Yeah.
Maybe I wasn't supposed to die all those times.
Yeah.
And things just started to change for me.
Yeah. It's
So,
interesting as I listen to you, that it's almost like this intangible thing, right? Like, I keep wanting to put words to it, but when I hear you, and you describe light, but you also describe the sense without words. So
yeah,
interesting. Thanks for sharing.
you're welcome.
Yeah. How about you, Aisha?
For me, hope, I feel like I've always had a little bit of hope in me since I was young, you know. There was always something I was missing, right? As a kid and being molested. And I always was alone. I was alone as a kid growing up, alone a lot. But I always had something inside of me that knew there was something greater and something better. So I think for me, like, hope is, you know, knowing that things are how they are right now, and there's some difficult things happening in my life, there's gonna be some light at the end of the tunnel. And I've always, although a lot of negative things have happened, I always have eventually, you know, thought about the positive, and that's my hope. And there's like a song, it's a gospel song that I listen to. I don't know the title of it, but it basically says, I'm so glad that trouble don't last always. And so whenever I'm like feeling down or having a hard day, that song just pops into my head and I sing it, and I feel hope. I feel better. So yeah, that's my hope. That's hope for me.
That's beautiful. It's funny as I just popped into my head as listening to you. One of the things that one time, a long time ago, I was in a conversation and someone asked us to name someone who was like pivotal in our lives or something like that. And I said it was Maya Angelou, only because of her book, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. And so as I heard you describe that, the song, I just all of a sudden popped into my head. I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, and how that, and she is also a survivor. May she rest in peace at this point, and in her life, an incredible survivor also of childhood sexual abuse, and I think about that cage bird singing. It almost feels like hope, this light and song that comes forward, and that trouble don't last always.
I
don't
just
know.
And it seems to, like, if there's something going on lately, it's been happening a lot. If something, like, if my mental is off, that song will come into my head, and then I immediately start to feel better, because it's true, trouble don't last always. Even though we may think at the lowest moments, we may think this will never change,
right?
It don't last always. It really doesn't.
Yeah, I love that. And I'll just add that, for me, hope is, I think it fits nicely with that. Hope is possibility. I think about this like universe of possibilities, like this, whatever we're going through at any given moment, that something else is possible. And of course, when I'm thinking about possibility, I'm thinking about positive possibilities, right? That something I want in life is possible, that can be eventually. I will say that I've needed to adjust, I think, what I hope for sometimes, like the specifics of what I'm hoping for. It's almost like nobly how you set up your day, like with the, how it was going to go with your icebreakers. So in some ways it's like I needed to kind of like, I've needed to reframe things, set things up. So like when I think about what I'm hoping for, like, oh, I'm going to get this one thing done today, and that's going to feel good. And, awesome. And that's going to be enough for today. So hope in some ways can be scaled for me. But yeah, hoping it is possibility. Whatever that may be, however big or small. So you both alluded a little bit already to how that can be hard in the hardest times. So let's talk. I mean, let's just go into that. How did you find that light, that glimmer of sense? And maybe, I don't know, maybe some of the answer is I don't know. Like, I mean, just listen to you, nobly, like you didn't know where it came from, but or at least at that moment. But curious, how did you find that light initially, especially in those like really, really hardest times?
Well, like I said, at the time I was angry with God, but I realize now that God had a lot to do with it. But for me, really, it was, I could not fathom or bear the thought of my parents burying another child. Their son was murdered, and I could not, even though I had the suicide attempts and I lived the way I lived, whenever I just really thought that I would actually like picture my parents like burying me. And it's like, I have to find hope. I have to do something, because I can't do that. I never really, in the beginning, I never really did anything for myself. because I personally didn't care if I lived or died, but I had to do it for, before my son passed, I had to do it for my parents. I had to do it for anybody in the world but myself, but to be honest, thinking about, and I'm Native American. I grew up on a reservation where a lot of people were like, yeah, it's just another, drunken, drugged Native American, whoop-de-doo, and it's like, no, that's not true. I have to stand up and set an example and do something so that the generation of children in my tribe, they're not another statistic. I didn't want to be another, I can't say that word well, statistic. And so that, that kept me going. And, even though I wasn't quite there yet, living on the streets with so many people, different walks of life, different situations, but everybody had a story as of why they were there. And all of a sudden, you'd go to a camp or you'd do something and John Q wasn't there. But you would hear, is somebody say, well, he got clean. He saw the light. Like he's living on the west side in an apartment, and he's doing these things. And so it was like, that would give me hope. And that's a lot of the reason why I do what I do, is because I want people to see, despite all the trauma, I'm here and I want to tell everybody what I've been through, not because I want some kind of cred or I'm doing it because I want people to know that there is hope, and hope's going to look different, and hope's probably going to look like, I can't do this for me, but I can do this for somebody else. And then I think it was 2 years after I lost my son, it was like, I was trying to get clean and I couldn't, and I just was struggling. And somebody said, my son's name's Waylon, and somebody said, don't you know that there's holes in the floor of heaven? And Waylon is looking at you and, he sees you're a hot mess. And is that really what you think that he wants to see when he's looking through those holes in the floor of heaven? And like that resonated with me so hard. And it's like, I need to warrior up, because I want him to see, I want him to see this brave mama who's going to do this, who's going to do the thing. And so that gave me, total hope too.
Wow. I love that term, by the way, warrior up.
Yeah. That's when you got to really dig deep, but that somewhere, like Aisha said, there might just be a little smidgen, but sometimes that's all we need to get us to get us going,
Sure.
So I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, please finish.
Oh, I was just going to say, so that everybody listening, even though it's just the most minute amount of hope, just hold on to that, because I promise you that can manifest, and that can, and that can grow, and that can be the little minute amount that you need for your inner bear to come out, and for you to, for your hope to grow within.
Yeah. I really liked, one of the things when we're having these conversations, I'm a hopeless consultant, right? I'm always thinking about like these, what I refer to in my consultant speak is like design features, right? So how do we find design solutions? How do we, find our way? So thinking about like if somebody's trying to figure out a program or figure out how they're going to help somebody else, what are those kind of key tips or features? And what I hear from you is like before, when you couldn't really get to that internal, like self-driven hope, like for yourself, and your self-esteem is pretty crushed still. But you were able to move into kind of a do for others kind of place. And that, oh man, that power of thinking about your son looking down on you. That was powerful for me too. Some people said, I actually didn't even remember until just now that people were like, what would Jasmine think if
Mm,
she
yeah.
saw you doing what you're
Mhm.
doing? Yeah. So that was definitely a
Yeah.
sorry, baby.
I know. Same. No.
Yeah.
Oh, Aisha, how about you?
Well, first of all, Nobly, from you, like just hearing what you just said, that's selfless. Like you weren't thinking about you, you were thinking about others, and that kind of helped you. Um, and you are just, you're amazing for that.
How are you?
Mhm,
You're
Thank
very amazing.
mhm,
Um, for me, initially, like what initially helped me was writing to Jasiri. That's my son's name, Jasiri. I would write to him every single day. Um, and in my writings, I would keep it as positive as possible because that was how I wanted to, come across it. Although it was a horrible, horrible situation, I wanted to stay as positive as possible. So I would, write to him, tell him about the positive parts of my day, although I was feeling so down, right? Um, but I would always, do positive. So that initially helped me. And I have like notebooks upon notebooks of just writings. And sometimes I go back and I read them. Sometimes it's too painful. I'm going to
mhm.
be real. Sometimes it's just too painful to
Sure.
read, to even sometimes look at his pictures.
Mhm,
Um, but that helped me initially. And then I think also for me being around my two other living children that I had, like I just made sure, just to be around them as much as possible. And to bond with them. And I think it not only helped me, but I think it helped them as well,
mhm,
because we very much so were all grieving and all trying to heal. And I think at points in times we were checking each other out, just like even though we might not have said, you might be off today, but we saw it and we loved each other a little harder that day,
mhm,
right? um so those things initially for me, and then later on I got to, like, I've always believed in God, nobly also, like I've always, believed in him. I didn't grow up in the church, right? And but I always believed in it, and that really really gave me hope. And before Jasiri passed away, I want to say a week or two before he passed away, I was telling him about some concerns that I had, and I'll never forget, Jasiri like saved himself before he passed away. He was such a good young man. I know he's an angel in heaven right now.
mhm,
Yeah.
But he was such a good, positive person. And I remember when I came to him with my problem, I was like stressed out about it. And he was like, Mom, trust God. It's gonna be okay. And
mhm,
so just that also, hearing him say that, and that always plays in my head. So that also like gave me, the hope after, the writing fell off, and like Johnny's gone now, he's in the Marines, and so he's gone, but I always have the hope, I have to trust God, I gotta. And so that just reminds me and gives me hope
Good.
all the
Yeah.
time.
mhm, mhm. I I love that. It's I mean, I love that. There's so many things about that. Can I just comment on a
Yes.
couple a, a couple of things? One is it's as if um well, you had this kind of supportive community in your family,
Yeah.
right? The way you all were there for each other and are there
Hmm.
for each other. I'm sure it hasn't changed. I mean, it still is a
Oh yeah,
part of
very
your
much so.
life, your boys' lives. And so I think that's just an amazing thing that you all have turned toward each other. I know
Hmm.
in some families it can rip families apart.
Yeah, definitely.
So what a beautiful thing that you have done that. And I would love to encourage folks, even if they don't have the, kind of the natural tendency to turn toward each other like that, and be each other's supports, to look for help in doing that, because what a wonderful gift you are to each other.
Yeah, and can I piggyback on that, Megan? If
Yeah.
there's somebody out there that is like, for me, I was very fortunate with my kids because first of all, I blame myself, right, for bringing this person into our lives that
Yeah.
did that to my son, right? So I blame myself, and I always like, I'm so thankful that my boys didn't blame me. And I even like Johnny and JJ was younger, he was 6 when it happened, but Johnny was grown. And so he and we had that conversation, and I'm like, I blame myself. And he's like, but mom, you didn't do it. You didn't force him to do that, And so I'm thankful for that. But like you said, Megan, sometimes, it goes bad and people don't, people's families aren't connected, right? And so if it does, for me, like my mom and I, we well, we weren't really that close before it happened, but after, like, we just don't talk, right? And so I guess I say that to say, if that does happen to somebody, their families separate, find somebody that you are connected to, that you do trust, that you can talk to. And yes, it's family, and you may, really struggle with that, because I struggled with that at first. Like, I wanted my mom I wanted support, right? You can't change anybody. You can't change how people feel, right? And so, but you can change what you do. You can change how you respond and react. And if that were to happen, there's always somebody for you, whether it be a help, a
Yes.
support group, whether it be one of your best friends, whether it be a stranger that you meet that you can tell your story to. So I just want to encourage people, because for me, although my kids and we remain close, other people, they may have blamed me, right? And so I'm just thankful that my core family, we're good, so.
Yeah. And I um I heard you say you blame yourself, and I get the tendency. I think we all do, one way or another. And I mean, in your head, even though I know it's insidious and kind of gets in your heart sometime, right, that it's that asshole. It's all him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's
Yeah.
like, but I brought this person in. But do you think if I ever would have known that, if I ever would have seen that, that would have
Hell
happened?
no.
No, absolutely not.
Hell no.
But
That's
you
right.
always blame yourself. Like,
Yep.
when something happens, it's like, I could have did this or I could have done that.
Yep. Yep.
So.
Yep. Absolutely. I can't remember what episode it is, but there was one where Nobly and I both talked about the different ways we blamed ourselves
Yeah.
as well. Yeah, it's almost this kind of natural tendency, because it's almost a way to try to have some sense of control over life, right?
Yeah.
These horrible accidents, these horrible violations, these horrible things, and that are beyond our control. And somehow the challenge afterward is stepping into life being very clear that we don't have that control, and
Right.
knowing, bad stuff is going to happen, and somehow we're able to find our way through. And like you said, like, if you don't have those natural supports there, to go and find that somebody else. I firm believer, and we heal as a community. None of us gets through any of the stuff we're facing alone.
Right.
Right. Successes and challenges, we make it as a community. So yeah, thank you so much for that. Okay, that there were other uh there are other things, but I will keep us moving here to join in my own stuff. It's interesting. I so like have longed for years that same kind of like natural faith that I hear in both of you.
Mm.
It was such a tough thing for me for a very, very long time. And in part because there's a part of my life I wasn't raised in, there's a part I was, but realizing that that is all more religion, and to me that's different than spirituality and general faith in God. And I mean there's obviously the crossover, but my experiences were with religion, not so much faith, if that makes any sense, or not so
Yeah.
much God.
It does.
So anyway, I think that for me, when I was trying to find some way forward in this, I was in that real place of struggle, and I was very, very lucky to have a good friend of mine. Her father is a minister. He's retired now. At the time, he actually was the head of a nonprofit interfaith organization. So he came with this particular kind of open view around spirituality. He was a Christian minister, but in this interfaith organization. And said to him, I'm really struggling. I don't know what to think. I, up until this point, have called myself a non-practicing agnostic. I don't even wonder. And now I have to. And now I'm terrified. And he said, "You, Megan, believe anything you need to believe at any given moment, however many times it needs to change, and that will be exactly the right thing." And there was something really beautiful in that. And I think in retrospect, and part of what he was doing is trying to give me bits of hope to hold on to, that it just didn't matter what exactly it was, because what mattered was that I continue, um, and that and what I would come to find later in a much more natural way is that she continues with me in a very different way, but she does, and that is a part of a really strong sense of personal hope about just life in general, and how much bigger this is than whatever thing I may be wrestling with at any given moment. Now, that said, that's where I am now, and I realize I've kind of jumped the gun on talking about that a little bit. So, but when it was really hard, one thing was that cycling. I took that to heart, what he said, and really held on to that. Um, uh, I also, when I mean, honestly, I took a rough road where I just lived in denial of and trying to shut out all my feelings. I do
Mm.
not recommend it, because I did that with drugs and alcohol. I did it
Mm.
with overworking. I did it with overindulgence in all sorts of sex stuff. I did it, anything
Mhm.
to help me to not think or feel.
Mhm.
That didn't make it so I didn't have to face things. So that's why I don't recommend it. I mean, it's better to to not go that route, and to try, to grab on to all the supports you can around you, and
Yeah.
any semblance of hope you can hold on to in those really, really tough early days and feel and go through everything you need to. So when I finally got to that place, it was then with the help of AA. And my I wrote about this piece about my sponsor basically is like, I want you to start every day by saying 3 things you're grateful for. And as
Love that.
absurd as that sounded to me,
Yeah.
that helped to create these little sparks of hope in life, that life could seem worth it, even for like this delicious cup of coffee that I maybe had. Certainly gratitude for a roof over my head. So that really, I think, was it. Plus, honestly, through all of that time, the thing that I did hold on to was this teaching from my early religious upbringing, that was that I wouldn't get to be with my daughter again if I committed suicide. And so I was going to do every damn thing I could to keep myself alive. So at the chance that I could be with her again. So there, that was a biggie. So I guess in short, that it was a process for me, and a lot of redefining and adjusting. And I'm going to guess that that's probably pretty common for most people, that it's just there is no one way, that it's a maybe starts with a process of grasping at whatever you can, and then eventually coming into something where you really feel it and know it. So that said, let's shift a little bit to this idea of manufacturing. I hear a lot of talk about manufacturing hope, like people want to instill hope in you, people want to la 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 la. And because we know how important hope is to getting through the tough times, I am not always convinced that that's really possible. Like, how do you make somebody else hope? And I'm genuinely curious about this. So because I know like I could get super limited in my thinking. So what do you think? Aisha, what do you think?
So, Megan, I think it's so possible to manufacture hope. And I'll give you the example of the AA staffer that you were being guided by, writing down those things that you're thankful for and hopeful for and positivity. Because like you said, you didn't see it like it, how, right? But once you started to do it, then you started to feel better. And I kind of, for me, I don't know, like I said, I've always had how I grew up. It wasn't it was a very negative. It was, I was by myself a lot. I felt isolated a lot, but there was just some like bit of, this is what's going to change, and it's going to be good. And so I feel like I've always kind of thought positively, even though things were very negative at times. And so I also feel like your tongue is very powerful, right? And so if we're speaking negativity, if we're speaking down on ourselves or speaking down about a situation, that situation is going to be like that, right? But if you're speaking light and you're speaking positivity and you're speaking love and peace and harmony, you can have that, right? But you very much so have to manufacture it. And I feel like for me, like when I mentioned earlier how that little glimmer of hope, right, was gone after Jasiri passed. The cooking glimmer and the restaurant glimmer, everything was gone and diminished because how am I going to be cooking when this was supposed to be our family business? This is what we were supposed to be doing. When we were in the kitchen, when he was here, we're in the kitchen cooking and laughing and talking. I can't see myself in a kitchen cooking and being happy. No. Um, but I had to change that. I had to speak positivity into it. And I'm so thankful, right, that I was able to come up with that way of changing that negative into a positive. And that's the manufacturing part of it. So sometimes I have doubts, right? Can I do this? I started my catering business, but can I be successful? But again, I have to speak that positivity. I have to speak that hope into it. And just, with remembering my son and remembering how important my mission is, because I want to do this in his name. I want to do this for him. And I want to, like Nobly said, they're looking down, you want to make them proud, right? And so I definitely believe you can manufacture hope. And I'm literally going to speak that this catering business and this restaurant business into full existence. I'm going to be successful, and Jasiri's name is going to be remembered, right? So we just have to speak that light.
Yeah.
Even though it may be hard.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I hear two things that you're saying. One is that just like that power of speaking it into existence. I love that phrasing, right? That speak into existence. Love that. And it really fits with, I was doing a bunch of just online research about this idea about gratitude and the power of gratitude that has real, genuine psychological, like brain science around like changing how you think and how you feel has a real impact on mental health. And I think that what you're talking about too is this, just like, I believe it, I will it. This will be like, it's like that also with affirmations, things like that, right? It's that same idea. So that's hugely powerful. Appreciating that. I also hear, like, thinking about you're cooking this thing that you love and that you love doing, this dream that you had about it being a family business. And so that I also hear in there is you're kind of redefining the dream. You're reshaping the dream. Right. I want to share something really silly for a second. Like, has either of you watched that show Bones? It's an old.
No.
It's a it's a show I've watched many times trying to go to sleep, which is a funny thing because it's like, dead bodies and things like that.
You're gonna go to sleep to that.
Totally. To screams and body parts flying.
Yeah. Sick.
I know. Yeah. Here I am.
That's funny.
But the main character is this forensic anthropologist, right? And there is another scientist there who has, in one episode, or well, somewhere along in this series, he is paralyzed from the waist down. And he gets very, very depressed and just like feels like throwing it all in. He's like ready to give up. And she says to him, because he's like, he's basically talking about how, well, he had all these dreams and what success was going to be like. And she says, then success must be redefined as that which can be accomplished. And that hit me so profoundly about how, when we're hit with these life-changing things, how by our own power, our own thought, our own, way, like, we find a new way forward. We find a new way that works for us. Frankly, that's what I'm doing right now. Having a recent dream kind of dashed in a way, but reshaping it so I still get the essence of, to go after the essence of what that dream is. And it feels like that's a lot of the process that we have all been in together. So I'm really appreciating that story and thinking about your cooking business, your catering business in that light, and especially love that part of the reshaping is it brings Jasiri forward
because he can still be included, and that's my thing. How do you see doing this and your son isn't here? How do you incorporate him? So that's the perfect way, right, to incorporate him. He can be included, and he can help families. Like, it's a whole I have a whole vision, you don't even know.
I can't wait. Well, I can't wait to see it all come to life, and let us know how we can help.
Absolutely.
For sure. Yeah. So Lee, what's your thinking on this manufacturing hope idea?
I really related to what Aisha said, because my sponsor, when I was first getting clean and sober, was so huge on the gratitude list, and like getting out of your own head by doing something nice for somebody else. And she would have me write like 10 things that I was grateful for that couldn't be the mere, materialistic and stuff. And I got hope from that. And then I do have some mental health things, and there's always so much going on up here. But I've been working on renewing my mind very extensively over the last, 6 months to a year, that I picture myself with a bow and arrow. And when the really bad thoughts come in, I'm just like, just nailing them out. And I can't do every single one, but I feel this power, like, no, you do not have the authority to be renting space. And so I'm just nailing down these negative thoughts, and that helps me. And then I like to think, thank God in advance for the things that I know that he's faithful to complete in me, and that he's going to do. And somebody said to me, just picture God in your tomorrow. And so that gave me a lot of hope, you know what I mean? Because obviously, lead to my own understandings, it wasn't a good thing.
Yeah.
It was no bueno. So I know that I can't do it myself, but I also know that other people can't do it themselves. And so I want to be the one that has that shoots with my arrow all those bad things down, so that I can have hope, so that I can give the hope to the next person. And that's my biggest thing. Even to this day, I do like myself now a bunch. I hated myself for years. I still have some work to do because of years of self-esteem, but I do really like myself. And as I get, stronger and start saying these nice things to myself, because before it sounded like this: you're fat, you're stupid, nobody wants you around, and so this is how I went about my day. I wasn't going to give anybody any hope, because I didn't have any. But now I say, you're strong, you're amazing, you make a difference, you're beautiful, you're important. And when I step out of the house, I'm like, I am a hope dealer, baby. I am slinging hope all over this county, and that's what's up. And I feel so good. And so, yeah, I do think, I just think we can, I'm going to leave it at that.
You're amazing. Yeah, you are amazing. I love you.
I'm still selfless.
Right?
Still, yes.
I want to make now. I have so many action figures I want to make for you of you, Nobly. But now this Hope Dealer one is just at the top of my list.
I love it.
I love it.
Beautiful. Oh, um, yeah. So let's talk about something that you shared in your writing, Nobly. This quote from just one of my all-time favorite intersectional feminist heroes, Audre Lorde. Um, do you want to share a little bit about that? Yeah. Share what the quote
Yeah,
is.
it says some women wait for something to change and nothing does. So some women change themselves.
Mm.
And what it means to me is, in the beginning, like I had mentioned before, like I barely wanted to breathe, and I didn't know how to change anything. And so I knew that nobody was going to change me or my circumstances for me, that I had to be the one to change myself.
Mm.
And that was a very ugly, very painful feeling, to start wrestling with some of this hurt and loss and insecurities and neglect and abandonment and all the monsters, if you will, that are hanging. But I knew that if I was going to be able to ever be better, I was going to have to do that. And so I started to change myself. And that wasn't an easy process. I had to do the work. I had to work extensively with the sponsor. I had to go to AA. I had to do everything, that I could. I went to a Native American treatment center, and I started sweating all of that out, and, started getting back into my heritage. And when I started to change and do that work, even though at the time it felt so awful, I started to feel different,
Mm.
like actual authentic Nobly.
Oh, yeah.
And I wasn't exactly sure who that even was, but I knew that with all of this stuff starting to come out, it was a slow process. And
Yeah.
it took a lot of work, but with it all starting to come out, I felt like I changed within.
Mhm.
And when I started changing within, then everything around me started changing,
Mm. Mm.
and it's always going to be work. We're always going to have, stuff in there. It's not like one day you're like, oh, it's not like that. But I tell people that I work with that that's where it's going to begin, is to start, loosening that stuff up. But that's what the quote like meant to me, is that we have to be the one to start changing ourselves.
Mhm.
Nobody really can do it for us, and that looks different for each person, but I guarantee that it's worth it, because I'm living proof.
Yeah.
I'm living
Mhm.
proof.
Yeah.
And it's important to have your tribe. And
Yeah.
even if it's people that don't really know you, there's people like us, us three that are sitting here right now, that I know would lend an ear to just about anybody that said, hey, I'm
For
going
real.
through it right now. Can you
For
give
real.
me an ear?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
What about
Yeah.
you guys?
Yeah. Um, God, it so struck me. I mean, it means something similar to me. I love this word agency, like that we have some real agency in life. It's like our own power to affect some change in our own lives. And getting to see that was really hard. The funny thing is, um when before Jasmine died, I mean, I had already had quite a bit of struggle. And I went through life in my early years in this like feeling like this tough girl, and I was just like this kind of hard shell, like I wasn't letting anything in, and it's just like I projected this like strong thing, but it was like the word I used was impervious, like there's nothing getting in there. And that is not sustainable, and that's not real strength. And I discovered that because I had actually rested in my in the 11 years of Jasmine's life, and a lot of my hope in life, I actually rested in her. Like I mean, remember, like I got pregnant with her when I was 20, actually gave birth to her at 21. But I had attempted suicide for real at 19. And so I was still in a lot of real struggle when she came about, and and just like watching her become and being a part of that and everything I put into it, like, yeah, I was like, there was a part of me that was like, I may be a lost cause, but here is this amazing person I'm bringing into the world and helping her to, do. I'm doing better by her, right, than others did by me. And so anyway, like there was just so much of uh, that when I lost Jasmine, I actually got really frustrated because people kept talking to me about how strong I was and da 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 da. And I was like, I felt so crushed, and I felt like I needed a whole bunch of hands under me to help me move forward. And I felt like people were like, okay, cool, you're so strong, you'll just do this. And so I like spiraled downward in that without actually knowing a good way to ask for help. It was just so I just did. And then I started getting in relationships with people who were frankly more messed up than I was, so that I didn't have to feel bad about how messed up I was, and just kind of went on like that. But there was a point where I realized, oh, I do have to step into this. And that when I step into this, in a real way, I can be my own hope. I can help make this life for myself different. And so that's really, I guess, sorry, a little bit of a long-winded way to get around to saying what that means to me, is that and it's funny because it's almost like, not for me, it wasn't even about changing myself. It was, maybe it was changing myself to get to the real me, if that makes any sense, to the real strength in me, that just was a little hard fought getting there.
Yeah.
I love it. For me, the quote takes me back to my childhood. Like I said before, I always just remember feeling so alone. My mom worked a lot. My stepdad was around, but we never talked. We didn't have any type of relationship. And honestly, like even when my mom was home, we never talked. We never had conversations. And I like, something as a little girl in me just I wanted that, right? And so I told myself at a young, even when I was like molested, she found out because she read my diary, right? She read a book that I had under the bed, and that's how she found out. And I remember going to one counseling session, And that's that. Like, no more talking about it, right? And so I always, when I was a young kid, I always told myself, when I get older and I have kids, I will make sure that they don't feel alone. I will make sure that they always feel comfortable with talking to me. Um, I want to make sure that they're heard, right? And so that's where the I have to change things came in. And like when the boys, yes, again, I was very young when I had my kids, right? My older boys, I was so young. But knowing that, and I've always, like, since they were young, told them, if there's something that you want to talk about, even if you think it's going to get you in trouble, if you think you're going to get in trouble for telling me about it, come to me. No matter what, 9 times out of 10, we can work it out. Just talk to me. I'm here for you. And I always wanted them to know that. And like, to this day, like, even just Siri, when he was here, he would talk to me about all the things, right? And a Johnny, like my middle child, my Marine, we talk every other day, if not every day. We talk all the time. And he'll tell me stuff and I'm like, oh yeah, no, I didn't want to hear that. I didn't know that. But I'm glad that something in me told me that that needed to change. And I made sure that it changed. And I have my 12-year-old and I'm instilling that. I'm instilling that in him. And and he's a quiet one. Like, he's the quietest kid that I've ever even been around. He's the sweetest young. I call him my earth angel. Just Siri's my heaven angel. JJ's my earth angel. But he's the quietest. And so I still, like, we have our talk times. We talk Tuesdays and Thursdays, and we have our talk times, and that's our time to open up, talk about whatever. If you have a topic, that's great. Normally he doesn't have a topic, so I just make something up, right? But I want him to feel comfortable with talking to me and telling me things, because number one, I didn't have that. I didn't have that safe place growing up. I didn't have I have your back. I never felt that. And I was always feeling alone. And so I needed to change that. And I definitely changed that. And I'm glad that I did it.
That's beautiful. Oh, you're the best mom.
I've got some sweet boys. I really
do.
You do. You know them.
Yes, and so handsome too. I can't. These young men. Oh, yeah. So I'm noticing we have a couple of questions left that we wanted to talk about, and I'm noticing that we're kind of coming close to the end. Not that we have a hard time that we wrap up, but I'm wondering if we can kind of quickly speak to the question: has anyone ever inspired hope in you? And maybe we can just do a kind of quick listing and who, how kind of thing. Aisha, do you want to keep going? Just take us right.
Why not? So first and foremost, God has really inspired hope in me. I mentioned that I didn't grow up in the church, but recently I have really, really, really gotten a great connection with God, and I'm learning so much at the church that I'm going to, and just learning the things that I know. That gives me hope. That gives me hope that I'll see my son again. It gives me hope and positivity, like just all the things about God has given me inspiration. Also my son, like I mentioned, just Siri, he was the sweetest young man. And, everybody talks so great about their kids, but he really was. So he definitely inspired me. And even at his funeral, his principal came to the funeral, and he told a story of how he saw Jasiri in the hallway one day. And he was asking him, "Hey, Jasiri, how's it going? You having a bad day?" And Jasiri goes, "There are no bad days." So, just like how positive, and he's always inspired me because he has always been the nicest kindest young man. And so he's just inspired me. And then lastly, I also want to say my counselor. Like I had, and I think it's really, really important for folks listening in or watching, if they are having issues and struggling, counseling is okay. Counseling is wonderful and it can help you. Um, Finding the right counselor is very important. But my counselor, I had such a very good counselor that really, really was trained in trauma, because that's what it was. My son was killed right in front of me. And so there's serious trauma there, right? And so she not only helped me deal with that trauma, um, and I'm still dealing with it, but she helped me a lot with that trauma, but she also worked through childhood trauma. So she inspired me to basically like work through that trauma. And I'm a good person. I'm a decent person, which I never thought. Like nobody was saying, you know, we talk negative and down to ourselves, but those things, it's definitely important. And those Jasiri, God, my counselor, those have inspired me.
Beautiful.
I'll keep it short. Sorry.
And of course, I have to add just question. Like, how did you find your counselor?
So through my job at the time, they had the free resource, and I called. You can get, like, they started you off with a free like 6 months counseling. And I asked, you can narrow it down. I asked specifically for trauma specialists.
Excellent.
That's how I found it. Yeah.
Excellent. Good.
So people's jobs, they have really good, and a lot of companies do that. They offer free counseling sessions for folks in different, different situations.
Right. Plus you asked for specifically, you knew what a need was.
Requested specifically trauma.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Thank you. But you, Nobly?
I mentioned earlier about when I, went to a place and was welcomed and, made feel good. Well, that place was Interfaith Works Homeless Shelter in Olympia. When I was at my worst, I would go in there and I got hope from all the volunteers, all the staff, everybody there. And then also my Alcoholics Anonymous sponsor, she walked me through some really, really deep stuff, and I was not kind. I was so angry, and she rightfully could have been like, yeah, I'm good. But she really never did. And then I did get hope from the idea of seeing my son again, and living a life that will get me there to where I can. And also God and my parents. My parents never, they had a weird way of, my dad was like tough love 100%. And my mom was like, you need a nap and a sandwich, you come home, you're always welcome. But they always gave me hope, so those were my big ones.
Yeah. And just to call it, some things that I know about your story, and you've alluded to a little bit there, is those are folks who didn't give up. Right. So, I know for me at my worst, like I had some pretty rough behaviors and people understandably walked away.
Yeah.
Right. And there were people who didn't give up. Who knew what I was going through. And these are folks who knew what you were going through and kept showing up. And that includes that interfaith, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So with Meg in particular, she's incredible people.
Yeah.
So awesome. Thank you.
I just get teary-eyed for the ones that never that stayed and that loved on you, no matter what.
For real.
So I just am so grateful for that.
Yeah. Right. And teary-eyed out of love, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Out of in gratitude.
Gratitude.
Oh my God. It's I do the same. It's like, I'm in many ways alive because of that. So yeah. um I'll add on. I mean, mine honestly starts with AA, to I mean, there are lots of people who've inspired hope in me, but I think it was really that turning point for me was even the first moment, in the first minutes when I sat down in my very first home group, and a woman about my age came and sat down next to me and put her arm around me. And then that group just circled around me and were like, I get you, I see you, here's how we're going to help you get to the next point. You know, they told me, because my alcoholism was severe enough, I needed to medically detox, otherwise I would have died. Literally, it was bad. And so they're like, you know, go to the hospital, and I did. And from there, those folks just wrapped their arms around me. Unfortunately, my friend Keith didn't have such a good result. But it's the kind of thing that I want others to avoid. She very much lost her hope, and yet still, and she had she survived by a son, who that group also inspired me, because they wrapped their arms around him too, and he is able today to live a full life, with an incredible community. You know, and I have to say that over and over again, I see this, you know, people who just show up for others, and that inspires me, that when we're at our darkest moments and feel like we can't go on, and somebody else is there is someone there who is ready to help. Even I found, I can't believe it's all these years later, I just found this group where there are parents who have lost their children, who are further along, like we are, closer to, like, you know, further along, like I am. You know, it's been 16 years for me, who are there, just volunteer to listen to folks who are earlier in the struggle, and to just be there. There's so many of us out there who care and will show up, and are just, we know how valuable it is for us, that we'll do it for others. So sorry, that was a little, I cannot stop myself. She with the words.
This is so good, because it's so good.
Yes.
There's a lot to say, right? So you know, we wanted to wrap up our conversation by talking about what gives us hope now, what makes us feel truly hopeful. And I think we've probably alluded to a number of these things, but I will just say briefly, is that what gives me hope now, kind of building on what I just said, is watching, not just knowing that other people are out there, but watching the resilience of people like the two of you. You are both truly inspiring to me. When I was first introduced to, or recommended that I talk to you, Noble Lee, um, I was told about how amazing you are, and in your resilience, and every moment I have felt blessed to know your story, and to know you, and to just get to laugh with you, and talk with each other about all the stuff that we're still, you know, we still wrestle with, right? We're all still wrestling with this. And yet look at us. I mean, it's amazing. And Aisha, we lost touch there for a minute, and then come back, and I was like, oh my gosh, and the stuff that you're doing with your life, and your catering, you know, just, and your boys, it's all so amazing to me. So to know that that's possible, and then to know, for me, I wrote about that moment where it felt like there was never going to change, that darkness was never going to lift. And I was so desperate. And just knowing that I have been there and I have come through to this other side that I could not possibly imagine anywhere inside me that was possible is in fact possible.
Yeah.
So that no matter what comes now, that inspires my hope and builds my strength even more. It's like I said at the beginning of this, I feel like I'm carrying some pretty giant boulders even at this moment. Nothing compared to the stuff that we've talked about, but real stuff, real life stuff, right? And it would sometimes that stuff can hit harder when you've been through hard, like really hard stuff, kind of like that straw, the proverbial straw that broke the camel's back. But I feel really genuinely stronger these days. So
Well, let me tell you this. I have felt an amazing connection from the first time I met you. We've had this season of talking about, very serious issues. And, you took not a very good writer, not a great speaker, can't hold still of a person. And we've done these amazing things. And Aisha, when I look at you guys, like, I'm with Megan on, like, I get so much hope, and I see beautiful, women here that have these beautiful hearts when we easily could have had cold black hearts because of everything that we've been through. But we're hope dealers, and we want to make a difference, and that gives me a lot of hope also. And making the difference in a child's life gives me so much hope, because I get to work with children, and when I get there, they run and jump in my arms, because they're, for that hour or however long, they are the only thing that matters. I mean, I'm working with their parents too, but to just be able to love on them in a way that they literally will fly that door open and run as fast as they can to you. Because I also, like Aisha, was a lost child. I was screaming in an empty pasture for anybody to hear me and anybody to love on me. After my son was murdered, I mean, my brother, nobody had it to love on me. So that gives me hope. And also, I see a lot of people that are still in their active addiction out there. And when you see the light in their eyes, like the light that we had in our eyes that said, I'm ready, that gives me hope. Because I know when you're ready, then things will change like they did, for me and for you, right? So that gives me a lot of hope. And yeah.
beautiful.
How about you, Aisha?
What gives me hope is just speaking that positivity into existence, that I do have a bright future. Because after my son was killed, I literally I almost ended it myself, right? But knowing that I have my 2 kids, knowing that life is beautiful, knowing that I will see my son again, that gives me hope. And I think also, we find our purpose in life, and I think also everything happens for a reason, and my purpose has been shifted, my reason has been shifted, and that reason is to hopefully help families, moms and dads that have suffered just as we have, right? So that gives me hope. Just, I plan to trust the process, and I know it will be great, and I'll see my baby again. So that gives me, that's my hope.
Lovely. Well, thanks. I'm grateful for for this time we have spent together. I'm grateful. This is how we are wrapping up our first season. I know we're going to talk about hope more in the future in different ways. We're going to talk about all sorts of things coming down the pike. But we are going to be off for at least a few months. Not exactly, we don't exactly have that defined yet. But folks can expect that we will be writing on new topics and looking at any kind of fine tuning we want to do to the format. And in the meantime, we won't be completely off the air, so to speak. We'll be taking clips from all of these conversations we've had and sharing those out. So for folks who, when there's like really like great tips or stories that I think are inspiring or really help folks to understand how we can build better solutions in our systems, in our personal and public support systems, and suggestions for those of us who are actively in survival mode too. So be on the lookout for that. We're also, honestly, Nobly, I haven't actually asked you about this yet. So I'm just going to go out on a limb here. Partner. That if anybody has suggestions or a topic that you'd like to hear us talk about, that you'd like to see us write our own perspectives on it, then I'd love for to hear those. And so we will that sound good, Nobly?
That sounds amazing. I
Cool.
think that's great because somebody wants to, to have a certain topic. We'd love to hear it and do it. Yeah, for sure.
Right. We can write about like how it's shown up in our own lives or
In our lives, yeah.
or our perspectives on it, whatever. But yeah, please share your ideas with us. When we put out the recorded version of this, we'll go ahead and add on the YouTube description a link where you can email your suggestions. So that, as always, will come out next Monday. So be on the lookout for that. And folks are also invited to chat with us on Facebook or send us private messages through that our OnSurviving Facebook page as well, or through communitywisdom.us/OnSurviving. You can find us there as well. So with that, thank you all so much for being with us. We wish you the very, very best, and hope for you to find whatever glimmers of hope you can along the way. And as always, we do love to close with our two medicines, laughter and water. Nobly, did you come with a...
Yes, but I cannot confirm nor deny if I've done this one before.
Fair enough.
Because I also will be getting my jokes revamped for the next season. But what do you call a cougar with a hearing? What do you call a cougar with a hearing aid?
Cougar with a hearing aid. Oh man, if you've done it before, my memory has definitely failed me. So what do you call it?
A deaf leopard.
Oh wow.
Sorry.
I love it.
Wow.
They're bad jokes, Aisha.
It's cute. It's cute. I might use it.
Oh, whatever it takes to laugh sometimes, right, my friend?
Right?
So with that, cheers.
Cheers.
Best to everybody. You can do it, you can get yourself some water after. Bye, everybody.
Absolutely.
Love you
Thank
all.
Bye.
Bye.